All right, Abigail, I'm coming into this review with a lot of feelings of anger, and I'll talk about that in a second because I got some thoughts on Abigail, and it's also kind of going on with a few other things that went on with the production of this review video. But Abigail, it's the latest film Universal released. Radio Silence production worked on it. They did for Scream 5 and Scream 6. Stars Melissa Barrera. Dan Stevens is in this movie. Katherine Newton. Kevin Durand. The late Angus Cloud is in this movie. And this premise is you have this group of criminals who come together. They kidnap this 12-year-old girl so that her really rich father will pay this ransom, and they'll all become multi-millionaires from this hostage situation. Something does not go right, and horror ensues. And why do I have so much energy going into this review? Because I did actually want to talk about this. I got to see Abigail a few days early at a press screening, and I was waiting on my thoughts, and I didn't know if I was actually going to record a review, but I really did actually want to jump into this review and talk about a few things, and that is the radio silence of it all and the Melissa Barrera of it all, because if you followed this channel, you probably know I have not been the biggest Radio Silence fan. I think their Scream movies are downright really bad, and I know they have really high critical reception, and fans have been largely positive on them. I don't understand it. I think those films are fundamentally extremely flawed, and they have individually great moments and some good cast members. I think Jack Quaid and Jenna Ortega were great additions to those films. But overall, those films just did not work to me. And I thought the radio silence element of those movies, the way they framed horror, the way they kind of used comedy in it, just didn't work in those movies. And Abigail is not the exception. Abigail has the exact same issues that I had with the Scream films. And let's just kind of start it on this, which is Melissa Barrera, the crossover star from both of these. And I don't mean to shit on Melissa Barrera. I really don't. I think she has talent. I think she's really good in The Heights. And I know she's taken her lumps this past year with everything that went on with the Scream firing. I'm not really trying to pile on her. Like I said, I think she does have talent. Radio Silence does not get that talent out of her. I think she's quite bad in Abigail. Not just quite bad. I think it's laughably really bad performance from Melissa Barrera. She is just way too self-serious in this role, and that's also the issue that I have with her in the Scream movies. She just doesn't have any form of appeal as a character in it. And in fairness, this is also due to the dialogue that Radio Silence gives her to work with. There's just not much that any actress can do with it. But she's supposed to be playing this mom that has guilt after leaving her son. It just doesn't work. She just doesn't have the dramatic range to make this character sympathetic or you really care for her. So it's putting Melissa Barrera in this tough challenge where she's not really clicking in this movie, and she's the protagonist and also in large part the heart and soul of this movie. So it's just an unfair. I think when she gets to be a little bit sterner, when she gets to have a little bit of sass to this character, I think she's better, I should say. The issue is when this character is supposed to be really, like I said, hitting the emotional arc of this film, it just doesn't work. And I think she's completely miscast and poorly utilized in this movie. Other actors come to play. I thought Dan Stevens was good in this movie. This and Kong, Godzilla, New Empire, whatever that movie was called. Dan Stevens just kind of continues just putting so much effort into doing thankless roles, and he's good in this movie. He's legitimately kind of eating up the screen time of it. He's very over the top. He's very, I wouldn't call it charismatic, but he at least uses that charisma to his advantage in this movie. The best performer in this movie is Kevin Durand. He is very funny in this movie. He legitimately gets the best laugh lines in this movie. But besides that, you've seen this film Abigail before. And That's not an issue. It's just I've seen this film before, and I don't think Radio Silence makes the best version of this film. I think they are really weird filmmakers in tonal sensibilities. I think they make some really great individual frames and moments within a film. I think they have a weird juxtaposition with tone at times, and it's really jarring in moments where at times I felt like the horror within Abigail was fairly light and the gore was fairly light, where I'm like, oh, is this a PG-13 movie? Like, it's not, it's kind of holding its punches, it feels like. And then the next scene is some of the most grotesque, violent stuff you've seen in a movie this year, and you're just like, oh, no, it's not. Like, and it's not that it's like comes in for a punch. Like, it does come in for, I guess, a visceral punch while you're watching this movie, but it's just so weird in framing with the other scenes in this movie where it's just like, oh, this almost seems out of pocket for this movie. And that was kind of my huge complaint with Radio Silence with the Scream movies, where I thought just their sensibilities as horror and I guess directors of action horror just doesn't work. And with their comedy stylings and trying to put it in their movies. And again, I know Scream 5 and Scream 6 are like, I understand Scream has inherent comedy to this. And I understand this premise of Abigail is silly. It just doesn't work to anything of great effects. And the special effects of this movie are kind of hit and miss. There's just, you've seen this movie with people trapped in a house with a monster and now having to survive. And you've seen it done better. And I feel like there's times where Radio Silence is almost like, but you've never seen this. And even if I haven't quite seen it the way they frame it, I am like, okay, but that's not clever. And there's a lot of times in this movie where it's just not clever. And it does really come down to the writing with them, I think, is one of their biggest fundamental flaws. Is I just don't think they're clever writers. They have to just rely so heavily on exposition throughout. There is exposition dumps throughout this movie having to explain what's going on. And it's a movie that really does tell you a lot. And you're just like, this movie doesn't need to be as high concept, I guess, as you will. This movie totally just works if it's 6 people trapped in a house with a vampire. That's it. That's all you need to know. No, they have to incorporate this crime element, this whole mystery of who this girl Abigail is, what she's done, this mythos and legends of it. And it's just like, no, just like they kidnapped the girl and it turns out that girl is a vampire. Like, that's all you need to really know about this movie. And that would have worked. And that's as much plot and story telling beats as you had to really hit on it. And this movie's just way too self-absorbed in its emotions, I guess, where it's just trying to almost elevate the performances of it. And it's just like, it's just trying to be too much in it. And it takes away from the simplicity of what should be a pretty great pitch. So Abigail, it's a film that doesn't work for me at all. There are scenes that I think are fun. There are certainly some horror jumps into this. I think there are some good performances juxtaposed to some really bad performances in this movie. And it's not a movie worth checking out, in my humble opinion. I'm going 1.5 out of 5 stars for Abigail. Oh, and the reason I struggled with this review and was so annoyed coming into it, I recorded this review maybe about 20 minutes ago and then found out I forgot to hit my sound button, and thus my microphone wasn't turned on and it sounded like crap. So I had to reshoot this review, and that's why I'm annoyed. So Abigail, 1.5 out of 5 stars. Kings lost yesterday. It's brutal weekend for me. But thank you anyway for watching. Hope you have a great day. Take care and subscribe to my channel for more.